Hey guys, just a really quick video from me. Honestly, I don't necessarily do things like this, but tell me what you think about this because I get like certain thoughts, not just like Dragon Ball and Saw and all that stuff, but also like movies and stuff. And honestly, I've always been a huge fan of The Lonely Island. You guys know, like, if you don't really know who they are, Andy Samberg was really big on SNL a couple years ago. You know, you guys remember I'm on a boat and I jizz my pants, all those things like that. Those are those guys who actually came along and made those, those songs. I'm pretty sure it's like Andy, Yorma, and Akiva. Those guys, that little group, they are so freaking funny. I mean, they have kind of, at least for me, I know they didn't necessarily start the whole like comedic form of song and just song and performance and all that stuff. But they really go at it really well. And honestly, it's really kind of a shame because the two movies that they've been involved with up until this point have not done very well. And it's really not very, it's sad for one part because they're so funny. And I personally think it's because a lot of the star power between the group is Andy Samberg after his role and after his kind of involvement or, face involvement on SNL, although the other two were involved, I'm pretty sure. The problem I think we have here when it comes to those three guys making a movie is they haven't necessarily made a movie that works in their particular, I guess, style or something that works like in a 2-3 minute long video on YouTube that goes online and actually gets, millions and millions of views and a very loyal audience to exactly what they want or what they're doing. And I feel like that's one of the things that gets them in trouble when they try to make these movies. The ones they've made so far are Hot Rod and Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, which is both of them very funny films. I actually very much enjoyed them. I personally, I feel like Hot Rod is better. It's just endlessly quotable and just an interesting film. Altogether. Just a very good comedy. And if you haven't watched that, guys, please make sure to go watch that. I mean, I don't think you're going to actually hate it. I have never met anyone who actually hates that film. It's so freaking funny. But, I just got done watching Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, and I gotta admit, like, it was a weird film, and I understand why it didn't really do well in the box office, because unlike Hot Rod, where it was just kind of this weird film they made that necessarily didn't have a huge following. I think I remember it was like 2007 when that movie came out, and that was basically at the year, especially that summer, where every rated R hard R film was doing so well. You had things in that kind of general time span. You had, Super Bad and Knocked Up and all these other films coming out that were just basically blowing up at the box office in really big ways, one or so every year. And I was just thinking that, oh man, just all these movies that are coming out are just going to do so well and they're going to be very profitable. And then that movie came out and it's just kind of went and like left. Honestly, it didn't do very well. I mean, it did very well in home sales because it's a legitimately funny movie. And I think the same thing might be said or be actually true for Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. But I'm just saying, it was a weird film because it feels like obviously they're going after that, that weird little subgenre that's really built up over the last couple years with like these musician pop star, weird documentaries where they follow and tours and all this other stuff that's going on. They're obviously riffing on that, but it does make me wonder, like, who is this film for and for what reason did they do it? I understand that at some level they were trying to appeal to their base, someone like me who really likes going on YouTube and watching and listening and even buying their songs, because as funny as they are actually good songs. So maybe that's what they were trying to get, and I think they hit that really well. That film has some really awesome songs that are just endlessly quotable, endlessly listenable, I guess. That movie has some really good songs that are just endlessly quotable, and also like never stop and listening to them, But it's weird to me because here's the thing: the biggest problem with that film is they're too old for the role. Obviously, that movie was a huge riff on, mostly more than anyone, probably Justin Bieber, and he is they even show him in the film. Not necessarily. Andy Samberg and Yorm and Akiva, they're all just too old to be in that role. And the movie plays off of both of those things. It plays off the fact that they're kind of stupid and they're these pop stars that never really grew up or something like that. But they act like children, but they're old enough to be remembered by some of the more iconic musicians of our time as being like role models and all this other stuff just because of their age. And that's the weird thing about the movie. And I feel like if there was a reason it didn't actually do very well, is because of that. And personally, I think that's a shame because while it's a good film, for the most part, these guys are actually incredibly talented, entertainers, not just like with the songs they actually create and distribute, but also just the fact that they are, they just get up and keep trying this stuff. And each of their films that they've made so far are interesting films that are actually kind of classic to some degree or another comedy films, which is not easy to do. So I'm just wondering, like, what is it that they're going to do next and how are they actually going to do it? What is the best option for them? And honestly, I know this is probably something that's never going to happen because, for the most part, the track record of it is just not there. There's a lot more failures than there is actually huge successes. But I really think one thing they need to do is they need to go back to something that worked on a very big level. And personally, I think what they should do is they need to get Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake back together to make a movie based off their characters that they did 3 separate videos for during the SNL digital short days, where they actually, the Dick in the Box, Mother's Day, and It's Okay If It's in a Three-Way, and get those guys together and give them their own film. I feel like these guys are actually talented enough to actually incorporate those characters into a very entertaining film. Plus, not only is Andy Samberg just an amazing screen presence, but, for all intents and purposes, so is Justin Timberlake. He is kind of making a good transition where whenever he shows up on screen, you just, you start paying attention, regardless of what you think of his acting ability or something. Whenever he shows up in something, it's like, oh, it's Justin Timberlake. I'm going to go watch that stuff. So I personally feel like that's the one thing, that's the direction they need to move. I know that probably will never happen. The track record for SNL movies are just not really there for one reason or another. Obviously, because they've done way more failures creatively than they have done successes, like Wayne's World or even MacGruber a couple years ago was really funny. And I can't wait to see the second one if they actually ever end up making it. So, I think that's what they should do next. Obviously, there's a lot of other things they can do. They probably want to actually move on from that. Obviously, Andy Samberg actually wanted to move on for that. I know he's getting a whole lot of success with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I haven't actually seen it, but if you've seen it, please let me know because I do want to see it at some point, just because I feel like he's a great performer. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. That's what I think they should do next, just because I feel like it's an established property. People would be really interested in seeing it, and it has some kind of weight to it. Other than the fact that, this thing is just kind of like, what was Popstar for? Honestly, it was funny, but what was it for? A Hot Rod, it was always going to be a cult classic, regardless of what anyone thought, even me at the time, but I was much younger back then. So, what are your thoughts on this? Did you see this movie? If you haven't seen this movie, please go see this movie. It's funny. I think, one thing is, regardless of whether it's even, you think it's hysterical or not, it's funny, and you can go and listen to the songs and everything, and they're really funny. So please make sure to go check out Popstar if you want. And I'm going to catch you on the next video. This is kind of a really just impromptu video. I'm probably going to make more of these in the future, but I just wanted to get this out to you guys. So with that, I'll check you out later. Bye.